Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philippe, we've gotten lots of snow here in central Canada. It is only November 11th. It feels a bit early for this much snow. I'm not sure how you're feeling about this. What do you think?
Well, it's I got surprised this morning. I knew snow was coming, but when you wake up and you see like this much everywhere, it strikes you. Also, yesterday on November 10th, I celebrated 30 years since I had my driver license. And I remember that because it was also the first day of snow. And I did my test with summer tires in a very snowy Quebec City. And I still passed. So, So that snow made me remember that. So anyway, but how are you, Eric? How are you today?
I'm doing fine, and you just talked about remembering, and it is, of course, November 11th. Yep. It is Remembrance Day, so thanks to everybody who has served this country, and of course, our thoughts are always at this time with the people who gave their lives in the various wars and conflicts that this country's been in. So it's important to remember Remembrance Day. It's always I'm a history buff, and military history has always been my deeper interest, more that I find more for interest rather than for any professional thing. So I've always had a lot of thoughts when it comes to Remembrance Day. My grandfather served in the Second World War, though he was lucky enough not to have to be sent to the battlefield. He was bilingual, and for that reason, they actually kept him in Canada to train soldiers. So,
really?
Anyway, so I just wanted to mark that on November 11th.
Absolutely.
It is break week in Ottawa and the House of Commons in part because of Remembrance Day. And I think Pierre Poilievre is happy he's gotten a break. Because I think he needed one.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. We have tons of polls to discuss. We have to talk about what happened last week, the turmoil, the floor crossing, the resignation that was announced by Monsieur Jeneroux.
Yeah, that is a bizarre story.
Yeah, that is a strange story. But is it a good thing to have this much drama and then everybody goes home for a week? Because you have time to think when that happens. So I'm not sure how... I'm not sure what will happen when they come back. Perhaps more people would have thought about their future. Would you be surprised if more people decide, I want to spend more time with my family? Which is always, it's always a good excuse, but it's always a go-to excuse also, right? Well,
there's two things with it, right? Because at one point, you're outside of the bubble of Ottawa, so you're not being monitored, you're not being peer pressured or anything like that. But also you have your... emotions have a bit of time to cool down. And so I'm curious whether that reflection will make people think, do I really want to go through what has gone through for Chris d'Entremont and Matt Jeneroux, or do I want to make a shift? So everybody, I'm sure, who's watching, listening to this podcast knows what happened. So last week we had talked about Chris d'Entremont, who crossed the floor.
Yeah.
There's lots of different stories and suggestions about what was behind this. The Conservatives talk about the fact that he didn't get the deputy speaker position and that he might have been sour about it. We heard from Chris d'Entremont that after he leaked it, seemingly inadvertently to Politico, that Andrew Scheer and Chris Workington, the House leader, barged into his office and yelled at him. Matt Jeneroux. So what happened? This happened, I think, just after. Well, no, it was like Thursday. So it was a few days after our podcast, or actually one day. So he had been seen as one of these people who might cross the floor, and all the reports are suggesting that he actually met with Mark Carney. There is a report that suggests that he was actually in the office with Chris d'Entremont when Andrew Scheer and Chris Workington barged in, and he vamoosed. He got out of there.
Yeah.
And he put out a statement that said, "I'm resigning. Please don't contact my family." And then later put out like a different statement saying, I wasn't coerced. I'm going to stay until spring. This is all about... It was just a very strange sequence of events. Regardless of what was going on there, Jeneroux at least at some point seems to have been considering a floor crossing. Maybe he decided on his own that he just didn't want to do that and resigned because of other reasons or just to get out of Dodge. But nevertheless... It's two MPs that have left the Conservative Party or are going to leave the Conservative Party, and a lot of suspicion, a lot of claims of let's just say some less than polite behavior within the caucus.
Right. Yeah,
and tensions. It just feels like after a few days, this has been one of the worst weeks for Pierre Poilievre, and it does raise the question of what does this mean for him going forward?
Well, the thing is, there's two questions here. What does it mean for him going forward for his leadership, and what does it mean for him for his leadership review? Because I don't think these are the same thing. We have to remember the leadership review is only the membership, and only the membership that will show up. I was under the impression that it was pretty easy to vote, to find some kind of a logiciel, some kind of a software, so you can vote from a distance. But you can't. You have to be on the floor of the convention. So there won't be a lot of people from Atlantic Canada nor Quebec. And don't the Ontario PC have also their convention the same weekend? So a lot of Ontario Conservatives,
coincidentally, of course.
Yeah, well, perhaps they'll stay in Ontario. So you really have to spend thousands of dollars to participate in this. Now, we've said this before, and I will reiterate it again, Eric. Albertans, yes, they are conservatives, but they expect a winner. I don't think they'll keep someone just because that person is seen as a big conservative. They have to show that they can win. But those who will show up there are not part of the big sample of conservative voters. They're members, so they are much more committed. And I do not see that changing short term. Now, perhaps I have the wrong impression, but looking at these numbers that we had from Abacus, and you mentioned them, and I'll throw that to you, but in the Abacus post-budget poll, the Poilievre impressions, positive -2 and negative +2. That's within Mo. That's within the margin of error. So it could be a little fluctuation towards the negative side. It could also very well be noise, and 2 weeks from now, it reverts back to the mean. So it's not like he lost 10 points in a week.
No.
Eric, how do you see this going forward?
Well, I do think, just to talk about those numbers a little bit, so 37% positive for Pierre Poilievre. That is the lowest number since March,
been a while, huh?
so since after the election.
Yeah.
And 44% negative is the highest number since about April. So while this is just a small within the margin of error movement, it is notable because it hasn't been this low and it hasn't been this high, his personal approval ratings, in a long time. So there is a bit of an indication in this early post-budget poll, post kind of turmoil poll, that it might have had an impact on him. And I do think that is really where the biggest danger is. I don't think the membership is going to vote him out. I think that he'll have a strong result. Maybe instead of a 91, he'll now have an 86. Maybe there's that kind of thing that'll happen. But the membership, I don't think, sees this kind of turmoil and thinks badly about Poilievre. They probably just think badly primarily of Chris D'Entremont and Matt Jeneroux. So I don't think it's really impacting him in that sense. But I think the biggest danger is, as you said, they still want a winner. If he wasn't, in most polls, only a couple of points behind, maybe tied.
Yeah.
If he was instead 10 points behind, I do think that some people would be like, well, maybe this guy isn't a winner. And that is the danger, I think, here. Maybe this will be just the blip. Maybe we won't see other polls that'll show the Conservatives losing, that Pierre Poilievre's numbers will get worse, his own personal numbers. But if they do, if we're at the beginning of a 2-month period where his numbers are sliding, then I would worry. If the numbers we see in mid-January are 45 Liberal, 30 Conservative, then I'm not sure he gets that 90% anymore.
Even 45-35, I think, would be if he loses by 15 points in January, I think he's cooked. But is there a threshold? Okay, so to go back to the liaison poll. They did a poll right before the budget and right after the budget, which is kind of strange because I don't even think the budget was the biggest story last week. It's a big story. It's public money that they're spending on defense and all this kind of stuff, and there's a huge deficit. But I don't think that's what caught the eye and the ears of Canadians last week. And so Liaison had 42-38 before last week, and then 44-36. So this is like at the edge of what's interesting because a 2-point swing in a week could be just noise. But if that noise had been on the other side, had it been like from 42-38 to 40-40, would we talk about this the same way? Probably not.
Right.
We would say, oh, well, the Liberals could not benefit from what was a poor week from the Conservatives. If the next poll from Liaison is 46-35, then suddenly it's like, okay, this is real movement. It's just that I don't think it's conclusive yet.
No.
And we are such in a polarized environment. We are not that both parties being around 30 anymore. We're both parties around 40 now. There's not that much movement that's possible because the Bloc is not gaining anything, and the NDP sure as hell is not getting anything right now. So I think it depends where you dip your your sample from. That's what the difference is. But man, that Conservative number again this morning with Nanos, and I know Nanos is lagging, but preferred prime minister Carney is back above 50, plus 2. It's plus 5 in the past month. It went from 46.
From the 4 weeks, yeah. Plus 2 in just the last week.
It went from 46 to 51. This is statistically significant. And Poilievre went from 28 to 27 in the past month, so flat, right? This is a 24-point gap in the popularity contest between the two main leaders. Poilievre is just dragging his party right now. Will the members of the Conservatives take this into the consideration? That, we're still polling close to the Liberals, but not our leader. Our leader is not close to the Liberal leader. It's new for them. They used to crush Trudeau, right? So ever since Poilievre came in, he crushed Trudeau. So, man.
The biggest danger, is it from the members or from the members of Parliament? That is what I'm wondering when it comes to Poilievre at this stage. Because I think the members are almost certainly still going to be behind him. But Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer were not taken down by the members of the party, though they were less popular within the party than Pierre Poilievre is now. If there had been a leadership review, maybe it wouldn't have been a good result. Yeah. But they were both brought down by caucus. O'Toole officially, Andrew Scheer effectively. Yeah. They more or less showed him the door. That's also one of the big risks here. We've heard reports of 10 to 15 Conservative MPs who aren't very happy. That's not a huge number. But when we were talking about the Liberals and Trudeau and his difficulties, when we were talking about a dozen MPs, we were like, that's still a pretty big number. And if we do continue to see these kinds of polls, you know who really likes a winner? The members like a winner, but the actual elected politicians who are worried about their own jobs really like a winner. Yeah, and that I think is also a big risk for him. If you start to have a bit more, if anybody else, if the Liberals get their 172, right, and no longer is an election in the offing. How many more of the caucus members will be like, well, do we want to continue like this for another 3.5 years? Yeah, there's just lots of risks here. There's a lot of potential for risks. But I'm not sure if it's going to use a Carney term, catalyze into anything that'll actually be that dangerous for Poilievre. But I do think these are the toughest questions he's had to face since he became leader in 2022.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. I agree. Although losing his own seat and losing the election, thing is, it didn't feel as bad because we saw it coming, maybe. I don't think we saw last week's coming. Right? Maybe if you have your ears on what's going on in Parliament Hill every day. And by the way, kudos to my friend Mickey Jurek of Politico, who had the scoop about D'Entremont last week. She's a great reporter. So maybe they saw it coming, but I was not expecting this. Maybe we disagree a little bit on this, and I get your point if Carney gets his 172. But a 172 majority is not stable.
No, I agree.
It's really not. I mean, I just think that I've heard many commentators, smart people, I just think it's been overstated. Let's say Carney gets another 1 or 2, or the Conservatives lose more people to resignation. So for the time being, the Liberals would have an effective majority. It's not a safe majority because everybody has to fall in line. And at some point, it won't happen. It can't last 4 years. And by the way, you said 3.5 years. The election law is still in October. So it would be in 4 years from now. It would be October.
Oh, you naive boy.
It would be. It would be.
The election law. The fixed date election.
Hey, only Ontario has removed it, my friend. More numbers than I want to throw at you, Eric. It's from that Léger poll. So the Léger poll has voting intentions stable. The Liberals wield a 5-point lead. It was 6 points last month, so no real movement. And I looked at the regionals. They look fine. You remember maybe that huge BC lead that the Liberals had last month. It was obviously an outlier, and that reverted back to the mean. However, approval of the government went from 47 to 52, and disapproval went from 41 to 39. Now, this is not small movement. You go from a +6 in approval to a +13 in 1 month. And what has happened in that month? A lot of preparation of the budget. We talked about the budget more than before the budget came out than just after, right? And I wonder, again, these are numbers that will give headaches to the Conservatives, because with a 52% approval rating and a +13, it's hard to the government that's in front of you is popular, right? It's not unanimous, but it's popular. It's much harder to attack somebody who's popular. It was easy to beat up on Trudeau when his numbers were like -50 or something. So not -50, but -40. So.
Yeah, give him his due. It is interesting that at the same time, Nanos, which has, they ask about the top issue, they ask unprompted. So it's not like they give a list, which is the way I kind of prefer it, right? Because it does actually prompt people to come up with something. And Donald Trump has become, again, the top issue, jumped by about 9 or 10 points over the last 4 weeks. So maybe that is somewhat related, right? That if people are concerned about Trump again, then it tends to favor the Liberals, because all the polling suggests that Canadians tend to trust Mark Carney to handle that file over Pierre Poilievre. Should we talk about that poll that came out about potential replacements for Pierre Poilievre? Which
yes, Abacus data.
The existence of the poll itself, right, is notable.
It's certainly notable. So thank you, Mr. Coletto of Abacus Data, for this poll. The title of the article in which the poll is "What Happens to the Conservative Party Without Pierre Poilievre?" Now, okay, so we're not saying that Pierre Poilievre is in danger. I really don't think short term he is. I could be wrong, obviously. Short term, I don't think he is. But it's never a good thing when pollsters start spending their resources on such hypotheticals. I mean, we saw potential replacements for Justin Trudeau before Justin Trudeau actually resigned. And when you see this, you know there's something brewing. There's a reason why it's there. So where do you want to start first? I mean, the more likely or less likely, or the actual names? Where do you want to dig in first, Eric?
Well, I do think it's notable that Pierre Poilievre still topped the list out of all of the names that were included.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they tested Stephen Harper, Doug Ford, Jason Kenney, Carolyn Mulroney, Michelle Rempel-Garner, Tim Houston, Mark Mulroney, Jamil Javani, and Melissa Lantzman. A lot of it was based on name recognition, because as they included people who became less and less known, the don't knows went up. So I broke it down separately on myself. When you change the names, who went up, who went down. The Liberals would always go up or down 1, 2, 3 points. Nothing really significant, because these are also split samples, right? So it's not always the same people. Right. So you do have to take into account the margin of error. And it would mostly be that the don't knows went up and the Conservatives went down with each new name. Usually not to the same extent, but the difference between them was not too great. So for Stephen Harper, Doug Ford, for example, the difference between how much the Conservatives went down and how much the don't knows went up were pretty insignificant. It was when you got to these names at the bottom of the list, Melissa Lantzman, Jamil Javani, Tim Houston, people that aren't known nationally.
Yeah.
The don't knows just kind of exploded, right? So there's a lot of people who said, I don't know who I would vote for in this scenario. So I take those numbers with a big grain of salt. Like Tim Houston, for example, in the Abacus poll, did really badly in Atlantic Canada. That's not going to happen. He's not going to get shut out of Nova Scotia. So there is that element there. But I think as a broader exercise, not looking at too deep into the details, it does suggest that there isn't at least an heir apparent to Pierre Poilievre at the moment.
And those who said, well, it's obviously Doug Ford, it's not that obvious, right? So, okay, so the base number here, Pierre Poilievre, this is with undecideds and don't knows, right? So Pierre Poilievre, 38 for the Conservatives, 36 for the Liberals. 2-point lead. and then you have 10% undecided. Put Doug Ford in, and the Conservatives lose 7 points. They go from 38 to 31. Liberals go from 36 to 34. NDP goes up for some reason.
Yeah. Which, again, is a bit of a reminder that it is different people sometimes, right?
Right.
There's no reason someone to be like, oh, Doug Ford's the Conservative leader,
Oh,
then I'm
let's
going
vote
to vote.
NDP. Right.
I'm not going to vote Liberal, I'll vote NDP. It doesn't really make any sense, but yeah.
The thing is, okay, so you said Melissa Lantsman is on a front bench of Poilievre and has been for many years now. I feel like she should be more known than this. But apparently not. The undecideds go up to 17% with her, and she's getting crushed by the Liberals. The Liberals get 40 with the Melissa Lantsman as CPC leader, and the Conservatives get 23. The Conservatives would not get 23. Let's be fair.
Right, yeah, right? Probably
so,
not.
I want to ask you, out of this short list of people, who's more likely to ever lead the federal Conservatives? Well, Stephen Harper already did, but who would be most likely to ever one day lead the Conservatives?
Out of this list, I mean, Harper's done. He's not going to come back.
No.
I mean, Ford probably could, or at least he might be interested. Kenny, maybe he is. I don't know. It ended badly in Alberta, but I'm not sure if he's entirely given up on it.
He's acting like Captain Canada right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. The two Mulrooneys, I mean, Carolyn Mulrooney ran for the PCs, though maybe she might have her eye on that job. Mark Mulrooney, I guess, people mention his name. He could run. I wonder if someone like, I don't think Michelle Rempel-Garner would run. I don't think someone, Melissa Lantsman would run. Jamil Javani might, because he seems to...
have the motivation?
Yeah, we'll put it that way. And I don't know about Tim Houston. I don't know. It's just very rare for premiers to actually run for the leadership of national parties.
Yeah.
So this is what makes me feel like that's the extra little bit of security that Poilievre has, is that it's not really obvious who would run to replace him, right? Like when Justin Trudeau was in the dumps, Mark Carney was on everybody's lips, even if you and I were kind of dismissive of it at the time. Yeah. Because, reasons. But, there was also Chrystia Freeland. There was other people that seemed like they could take the spot. But if Pierre Poilievre resigned today, I don't actually know who would run to replace him. Like, who would be the ones to announce their leadership? I don't actually have a good idea about that.
Well, who ran in the last two leaderships?
Well, I mean, someone serious. I'm not talking about, like... someone who's going to get 3% of the vote, but someone who actually has a chance to win, right? Like, maybe Roman Baber runs again, but he's not going to win.
Leslie Lewis is going to run again.
Probably, and I don't think she would win. But who would be the front runners in that list, right? I
think out of that list, Eric, I think the most likely, I'm not saying it's likely, but the most likely out of this short list, I think would be Jason Kenney. But we'll see. It seems like, I mean, the way he's been acting online, and I saw him on a few interviews. I don't know. I feel like he's not done with politics. After getting removed as Premier of Alberta and having, what did he get in the leadership review? Like, wasn't it like 51% or
51, 52, and they had really stacked that room, and that was still all that he managed to get.
Yeah, politics was done with him, but he's not done with politics, right? Anyway, I thought go check it out on Abacus Data website. Basically, Poilievre is still right now the best hope for the Conservatives. I don't disagree with the numbers. But it's just that if it gets too toxic at some point and they see that he can't win, they'll say, well, we don't know who we have on the bench right now, but I know this guy's not doing it. I'm not there yet. The numbers that we look in the polls, they're not that good for Poilievre, but I don't see disaster either. The Liberals will lose someday. Newsflash, they will lose someday. And the Conservatives will be best positioned to do that. It's just, we'll see. Anyway.
We should spend a few minutes talking about the actual impact of the budget, because we have seen some post-budget polls. Yep. I think the early indications, as you suggested, are not that the budget has really boosted the Liberals, but also no real indication that it's sapped them.
That's right.
Nanos, which is only a quarter of their sample, is post-budget, had the Liberals up a point from last week. Liaison, as you said, had them up 2. Abacus had them holding, but the Conservatives down 1. So at the very least, I think it's fair to say that the budget hasn't hurt the Liberals, and it'll be. But it's really hard to separate the drama in Ottawa from the budget itself. But there was a number of polls that came out about people's views on the budget.
Yeah.
And they kind of suggest that people are 50-50 on it.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
Well, actually, I would think it's very good. If half the people are happy in our system, I mean, you don't want the other half to be really unhappy about it, but I think it's a good number. Yeah.
One of the things, we can just go through some of them really quickly. The Liaison found that 40% of Canadians thought the budget would have a positive difference in their personal finances. 50% said it would have no difference. No, that can't be right. I must have written these numbers wrong. But
it is 28 plus 12. Yeah, a significant difference, right. Small difference. It's 40%, not at all. So, do you think it will have a positive?
Oh, not at all. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you
50% is not at all, no difference. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Abacus had that 52% of Canadians said that this suggested the country was going the right direction, or the budget was going in the right direction. 40% said the wrong direction. Abacus found 5% said it exceeded expectations, which I think aligns with kind of the commentary afterwards, that it wasn't more than people thought. Yeah. 38 said it met expectations. 39 said it fell short. This was really interesting. Abacus found 42% of Canadians said my MP should vote to support the budget. 33 said they should vote to defeat it. And among NDP voters, it was 35-29. So NDP voters are kind of split on it. And Innovative Research found 37% satisfied with the budget, 36% dissatisfied. One of the things I actually appreciated from the IRG poll is that this is a polling company that's been around long enough that they've actually polled on every budget. And in budgets going back to the late 2000s, only the 2008 Conservative budget, the 2016 Liberal, and 2021 Liberal budget had a net satisfaction that was positive. And so this is a +1. It's barely positive, but compared to how people usually react to budgets, it's actually a decent one. So that suggests to me that it kind of aligns with kind of the numbers we see from the voting intentions, that it's not a budget that's likely to put off a lot of Canadians, at least the initial reaction. That's what it seems to be.
Yeah. And I think right now the big story, one of the big stories in Quebec is that this new spending on defense, I mean, there's a lot of money that's going to be there. And François Legault has already talked about it, about key minerals and lots of jobs, lots of spending on usually provinces like this, when the federal government spends on defense, because it provides a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunity to pull resources out of the ground. Now, not everybody agrees with that, but there's still a lot of money available. And so far in Quebec, the reaction has been okay. Lukewarm, maybe, but not negative, that's for sure.
Budget vote is supposed to be on Monday, 17th. What do you think?
Yeah.
Does it get through?
It kind of has to. The NDP, Mr. Davies, has spoken to reporters, on the record. We saw him on camera, basically. He says there are many options. We've heard Jagmeet Singh and other leaders in the past say, no way, right? Non-negotiable. They can come to see us, but right now, no way. If your first reaction says, we have options, maybe we'll abstain or something, I don't think Miss McPherson will abstain. She's in the leadership race right now, so not taking a stand would kind of look bad. I think we could all agree. But we won't have an election, a snap election, before or just after Christmas. To our chagrin. No, I'm kidding. I'm fine with it.
Actually, no. If they want to have an election, call it in January. Don't call it in the midst of the holidays. Come on. That would not be fun for anybody, I don't think. So we'll see. I am curious to see how it's actually going to end up passing. Yeah. Will it be because some people don't show up? Will it be because of abstaining? Will it be because the NDP gives it enough support to pass? Is it because the Liberals actually find a couple more floor crossers? It's only Tuesday, so we'll see. But I agree. I think we're avoiding election. A second election in 2025.
If you could also have a few Conservatives. We've heard there are nervous Nellies among Conservatives. If a few of them decide to abstain without the consent of the whole caucus, and they just turn to them like, "What are you doing?" That could be another way, but it would provide more drama and. we've had our
Well, I
days
would
of
have
drama
guessed.
for a
I would
while.
have guessed that the least it would be something undramatic, like NDP supports it, right, or something. But after last week, I'm not sure if no drama is what we should bet on. I think. Well, we'll keep an eye on it.
That's right.
So we had one event over the weekend that will have some impact on an election that we know is happening next year.
That's right.
And that's in Quebec. So Quebec Solidaire chose their co-spokesperson, their male co-spokesperson. We've talked about it a couple of times. Quebec Solidaire has a different leadership model where they have two spokespeople. They're not necessarily leaders, though they're more or less treated like leaders, at least by the media. And one of them is chosen to be the person who would become premier if they were elected. Ruba Gazal is the female spokesperson, and they chose their new male spokesperson. Why don't you tell us what the results were?
Zanetti won on a first round. There were 3 candidates for this. Zanetti is a Quebec City MNA in Jean Lesage. So this is part of Limoilou mostly in Quebec City. Part of the, I want to say the most, I want to say the most urban, but it's a denser part of Quebec City, let's just say. So he's won it the last 2 elections. His rival was also the Quebec City MNA, Monsieur Grandmont, who's in Tachereau. This is like downtown Quebec City, where the National Assembly is. And there was also a guy from, I think, the Gaspésie, was lesser known. He was from the Union Movement. I'm not
sure.
Up,
if I'm not mistaken, he headed up something health-related during the pandemic, responsible for the Gaspésie region.
Interesting. So Monsieur Zanetti wins, and he had no support from caucus whatsoever. Most of the caucus of Québec Solidaire went with Grandmont, even Manon Massé, and Zanetti still won. So the members saw it other way, and maybe there's something here between the members and the actual party, the caucus, that will break. But I find it very interesting. It's just that Monsieur Zanetti will be hard-pressed to win his own seat next year. The numbers are not good for Quebec City, for Quebec Solidaire, in Quebec City. But they were not that good either, and Monsieur Zanetti managed to win twice. So perhaps we are underestimating him. He is very focused on Quebec independence. He was a leader of the small party Option Nationale for a little while. Option Nationale was a party that broke off from the Parti Québécois, now merged with Québec Solidaire. So we'll see where it goes. There's an interesting dynamic. We have 2 leaders on Québec Solidaire who are staunchly in favor of independence, and we know that most of voters of Québec Solidaire are not. So will that have an effect on their numbers? We'll see the next few polls.
Yeah, because both Gazal and Zanetti, as you said, are both pretty focused on independence. So it does suggest that will be one of the leading kind of pitches they'll take into the next election. I do wonder what that will do to the more left-wing, more center-left, let's say, progressive, but not overly left-wing base of the party, what options they will feel if they don't really want to get on board with that project. Maybe it provides a little bit of an opening to the Liberals if they want to try to get into it. But I do wonder what's going to happen to some of those, left-wing voters that right now wouldn't have an option if they're not sovereignist, right?
No, exactly.
They would. They have limited choices.
Okay. We'll see. Québec Solidaire is not doing well in polls, but we're expecting Quebec polls very soon. So.
We also got a poll out of Ontario. Another poll. We get a lot of polls. We get like more or less a monthly poll from Abacus now in Ontario, which is good, But it's just it's just not a very interesting province when it comes to polling. But we have 51% support for the PCs in this survey, 23% for the Liberals, 19% for the New Democrats, 3% for the Greens.
Yeah. This is a
the
bad
four
number for
PCs
the Liberals.
Seem to be cruising. They've been around 51% for more or less half the year. The Liberals seem to be sliding as their leader kind of drifts away. We still don't know when that leadership race is going to happen. The NDP is up a bit. 19% is a bit of a bump from where they've been. But it does continue to show that Doug Ford and the PCs seem to be pretty safe. Even though every time you see a poll from Ontario, numbers are good for Ford, numbers are good for the PCs. Numbers are usually not good when it comes to like how the government has performed.
Yeah.
Which is interesting and probably a condemnation of their opposition.
The Ontario voters, those who do vote, obviously, are are not too fond of the opposition parties. And so they seem to be fine with Ford. I'm just looking, though, the 23 number for the Liberals is very low. Like, Liaison Strategies last month had 33. Léger last week, but it was fielded last month, had 32. And Abacus Data last month had 25. So 23 is really low, but they don't have a permanent leader. Ms. Crombie already announced that she was stepping away. We don't have rules or candidates yet for the OLP, right?
No, don't have a date, have nothing.
Yeah, we have nothing. So, yeah, this could take a while. But 28-point lead right now for the PCs. They're doing fine. So,
all right, let's do the number of the week. Would you like to go, or should I go?
Go first, yes.
Okay. So mine is going to be from the Abacus poll, and I do believe it was the most recent Abacus poll. Let me just see if I can.
There was a flurry of polls from Abacus.
Yeah, they put out a number of polls. I think it was a different one. Anyway, it was a poll from Abacus Data, and it asks, would they be more or less likely to vote for the Conservative Party if Pierre Poilievre was no longer the leader? It found 29% of Canadians who said they would be more likely to vote for the Conservatives if Poilievre left versus 12% less likely. So that's a pretty big 17-point gap. Now, you might be like, wow, it's probably just a bunch of Liberals and New Democrats who are saying that to make trouble, and they actually have no intention of voting for the Conservatives. Abacus also broke it down by the people who are accessible to the Conservatives, people who say they're open to voting for the Conservative Party. So they're not people that, they'd be like, yeah, I go from 0 to 1% likely to vote Poilievre. They're people who would actually think about voting for the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Among the accessible voters, it was also 29% who said they would be more likely and 9% less likely. Yeah. So it does suggest that if there is a change of leadership, it could actually boost the Conservatives. Now, you could have a scenario where they choose a worse leader who ends up hurting the party. But this kind of number does suggest that he is dragging down the party a little bit, which is remarkable to think about because the party's at historic highs in support over the last 30 years. Yeah. It's not often you see the Conservatives at 40%, but it does seem like he is still dragging the party down a little bit, that they could be doing better, potentially, if they had a different leader in place. But it's always the hypothetical fill-in-the-blank leader is always better than the leader that's in place.
Generate conservative leader, It's
the conservative leader that the person is dreaming of.
That's right.
Would be better than Pierre Poilievre, but the reality is not always the same.
Very interesting. My number of the week is from Léger. Since Prime Minister Carney took office, would you say the feeling of national unity in Canada has improved, not changed at all, or worsened? Improved 47%. Worsened 15%. Among Bloc voters, 45% believe that it has improved, and 9% believe it has worsened. Now, you could say, okay, maybe some Bloc voters are like, this Carney fellow, he's not that bad. Or they're saying it could not be any worse than Justin Trudeau anyway. So it's just better because it's Mark Carney now. I'm not sure, but this feeling of national unity, very interesting from the Léger poll that was fielded late October, early November. Go check it out. More questions also about pessimism and optimism about the country, about the city, about your province, about your personal finances. And we have seen that in several polls over the past, I want to say months, but it's years actually, that a lot of people are saying, no, the country is going down the tubes, it's not going well. How about your personal situation? Oh, I'm doing fine. So people are feeling more optimistic about their own finances than about the country's, which I think is, it's interesting. I'm not sure what it means, but it's telling something. So anyway, on the Léger poll, check it out.
Do you still have the poll in front of you?
Yeah, I do. I can scroll.
What was the national unity numbers in Alberta? I'm curious.
National unity Alberta. Improve 45, worsen 24. 24 people of Albertans who believe that it has gotten worse on the national unity front. Yeah, I believe that. That makes sense. In Quebec,
interesting numbers, interesting ones.
43-10 in Quebec. So.
All right. Okay, well, that'll be it for this week. We have... we're all just watching the news to see what's going to happen in the next week, and we'll chat about it. We're currently planning to do an episode of Les Chiffres later this week because we believe there'll be a poll out. If there isn't a poll, maybe we'll have to recalibrate. But if you would like to get access to that, it does come out publicly on Friday. We'll have that out for those of you who speak French or would like to brush up on their French. We also have, of course, access to the Discord, the early and ad-free episodes at thenumberspod.ca, so you should go there to support us. I'm starting to already think about our leadership draft. Our leadership resignation draft.
That's right.
I think that'll be a bonus episode for members, but I'm already starting to think about it. Who's moving up? Who's moving down the list? I'm pretty sure who I've got on the list, but I'm very curious to see who's going to top out. Pierre Poilievre, I'm not sure was going to be on the list, but now I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, the list for this year ends on December 1st, so that's 20 days from now. I'm leading 5-2. So I think if there's a flurry of resignations in late November, perhaps you could catch up. But I think you still have one in you. I think you could make it closer. But
Scott Moe just got over 80% on his leadership review, so
yeah.
I'm not getting a Scott Moe.
That was
I
a
don't
strange
know why
pick,
I chose
though.
Scott Moe.
I don't know.
We'll see what we do this. One of us will make a stupid pick.
That's right.
This year as well.
That's right.
All right. Well, Philippe, have a good week, and we'll chat later on. And for those of you watching and listening, thanks for that, and we'll talk again in 7 days.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Have a great week.